back to the next 100. It's me. It's Molly. I'm back. Thanks for joining me. It is getting pretty cold out there, even in Costa Rica. I mean, that means it's like 71 and not 74, but it feels cold. I don't expect you to feel bad for me, but it does feel cold. I'm even wearing a kind of like a cozy sweater today. So, I've been thinking a lot about, why I'm doing this podcast and what the point is and what kind of content would be valuable. And um, I realized that I don't really talk about my journey to Costa Rica that much. And I think because, well, it was a little bit painful, to be honest. I didn't leave um, in the most exciting of circumstances, the pandemic and relationship with my mom. There was a lot going on. I was excited to come here, and it was always a plan, but it was like a retirement plan. It wasn't a right now plan. And everything kind of changed, right? I don't know, everything sort of changed. And well, everything didn't sort of change. Everything completely changed in the pandemic, right? How we did business, where we did business, where I was living, where I wanted to live, what I thought was possible, what wasn't possible. All of that got completely tipped on its axis. And I found an opportunity to go to Costa Rica, and I took it. And 3 weeks after I got here, I was drugged and robbed in a home invasion, and I didn't do anything to deserve it. I know people are thinking, "Who would say that?" Lots of people. I didn't go to any bars. I used the same taxi driver. I didn't have any interactions with anybody. They literally were just waiting for me to move in, and it's a really big problem in Costa Rica. There's a lot of home invasions all the time, honestly. Um, you know, I love Costa Rica, and it didn't make me wanna leave, but, Costa Rica's got a great PR campaign, and, Pure Life, Pura Vida is absolutely accurate. I mean, there's toucans flying by and beautiful birds, and, I mean, just the flowers that I'm looking in my yard right now, and there's a volcano and a lake. I mean, it's just unreal. It's absolutely unreal how beautiful it is. And so Pura Vida is a very accurate statement, but it's also Central America, and it can be dangerous. And people don't really like to talk about that because it shatters their dream of this utopia that they banked on. And so when you rattle that cage a little bit, people get really defensive and they don't want to talk about it. And so nobody really tells you what's happening. You kind of have to get here and figure it out. But at the end of the day, when you're moving to another country, where you don't speak the language and everything is different, whether it's a developing country or not, it doesn't matter. You are a guest here or a guest there, and you should kind of act accordingly and just not be shocked or surprised or appalled by anything, because the whole reason why I left is because I wanted something different. And boy did I get it. And how did that happen? People ask me this a lot. I left one of those like slotted windows like your grandma had on her breezeway, like, or they have in Florida where you like like wriggle a little crank and I had one of those. And I used to turn the AC on every night and close everything up. Otherwise, every bug and the whole town would have been in my living room. And so I would close it up every night and turn on the AC as soon as the sun went down. But apparently, I left this one window open, and so at 1:40 in the morning, they came through the window, and it was three men. They approached the house. They like shine their flashlights at the security cameras. I have all the footage in case you're wondering how effective security cameras are. And they got through the window, and then they came through the house, and then they blew horse tranquilizer in our faces. I had two friends from DC visiting, and literally knocked us out while we were sleeping. And what it does is it just keeps you asleep, and you wake up with a headache, and all your shit is gone. And so they were in my bedroom. They were in my house for almost an hour. Um, and I have no recollection of it. I have no memory of it. And it's really impossible to defend yourself when you're sleeping, especially when you've been drugged. And so um, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a really difficult thing. But I'm one of those people that just always survives. And then later on in retrospect, I'm like, damn, that was super fucked up. And that's kind of one of those moments. I was more concerned with my friends who were visiting and feeling bad. And I just get into like survival mode. I've had so many surgeries and so much pain in my life, and I just get into survival mode. And so I just dealt with it. And The cops showed up and well, we called them and they didn't show up, so we called them again, and then they showed up guns blazing, big guns, fingers on the trigger, pointing them at us. They thought we were the robbers, and so, I'm in my kitchen. I'm totally just I'm just all shook up, trying to figure shit out. There's 2 cops in my kitchen. They're speaking Spanish with my landlord. I don't understand anything that's being said. All I see is that they still got their finger on the triggers for like 20 minutes. And all of that was a lot. That was a lot, but at no point did it ever make me feel like I regretted my decision to move here, and it didn't make me feel any differently about Ticos. It pisses me off a little bit when people say crime happens everywhere. Yeah, no shit. Such a fucking stupid thing to say to somebody. Of course it does, right? But it's the crime, right? It's the devil, and in DC, nobody's coming through your window like that. You know what I'm saying? Hell no, man. There you get shot. You might get shot on your front doorstep. You might get mugged right on your own front porch, my friend. But inside your house is relatively safe. And so but what it did is it rattled my sense of security and well-being, and I did a bunch of therapy and, ate a bunch of mushrooms and got my head right. And, if that offends you, read a book. But I did whatever it took to get things right, and I felt much better, and I still do. But it's crazy how every time I look back, I think to myself, "Man, I'm better than I was 2 months ago," and it's been like that for a year, almost 2 years. Fuck, it's been almost 2 years. I moved to Costa Rica January 28th, 2021. No, 2021. So it wasn't even a full year into the pandemic, and so now I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary, and so it's wild to think that this stuff still affects me, right? And there's been some crime lately and home invasions in the general region, so it's sort of triggering all that again. But at the end of the day, man, that's life, right? Like we got to make choices. The flip side is I live in this beautiful place and I live in this amazing community full of people who genuinely seem to actually care about me and, look out for me and check in on me. And I've never felt more like supported or appreciated. And don't get me wrong, in DC, there's a lot of people who love me and I love them, but DC is hard and everybody's just trying to survive. And here, everything slows down a little bit. People ask me, what's it like living in Costa Rica? Well, when you're a business owner, you spend a lot of time on your computer. So it's just sort of like having a really fancy Zoom background that's real, like that shit right there. But, you know, it's very quiet. It's very quiet, other than the birds and the monkeys and the cows and the donkey in the neighbor. Back up in there's a donkey. But it's quiet here, and you have a lot of time for self-reflection, a lot, and there's so many moments. It's like when you end a bad relationship and you're, like, sweeping, and then you remember, "Oh my god," something they did, and you're like, "God, how did you not see that?" Right? Well, Costa Rica's like that, but for self-reflection. You get all this time to think about the things that's happened in your life, the things that you did, things that are your fault, things you could have done better on, things, and for me, it's not even like what happened to me, or who wrong. No, it's not about it's about me. It's about moments recognizing, like in my old company where I was just a shit ass leader. Oh God, you know. Even now, a couple weeks ago, I'm sure I could pull an example in the last month where I was a shit ass leader. But man, I'm really trying, But gosh, this quiet time gives you so much time to reflect, and sometimes it can be too much time, right? So there's a balance there. I'm curious how other people navigate that stuff because I think sometimes when you're in therapy for too much, and you go every week, it's like sometimes I'm in a good mood and then I go re-trigger a bunch of childhood trauma and I'm like, bro, it's Tuesday. I got work to do. I can't afford to be this messed up every week. But sometimes you really got to do that. And so there's a balance there, right? There's a balance of trying to figure all that out. But Costa Rica is just such a beautiful place and it really brings everything back. Like I have a doctor, like a local doctor who I can text on WhatsApp and ask her for information or advice or tell her about my health. And I have, all this amazing community and I have great friends. People say it's really hard to make friends as an adult, but I think it's what you focus on, right? Because if you're looking for friends who are exactly like you, who feel the same way about you, who voted for the same person as you and have the same beliefs and believe in the same God and da da da, well, you're going to have a hard time making friends. And the thing about Costa Rica is that it doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. Like, there's a certain type of person that leaves everything that they know and moves here. There's a certain type of person who's like, I'm totally down to live in a developing country and live off a dirt road and like, do that, right? It's a different kind of person, and it doesn't matter who they voted for. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't. None of that matters, and it's cool how quickly all that stuff kind of fades here, because if your dog gets like bites one of them toads and has a seizure, your neighbor's gonna help you. What are you gonna say? Excuse me, who did you vote for? Or, I'm sorry, but you're not using the right words, or you're not being politically correct, or you're offending me because no, man, that doesn't exist here. Nobody's policing each other's language. It's just people are here surviving and relating to each other and sharing stories and being good community members. And I think there's such a big lesson there. And what does that look like? And it's easy for me to say, to tune out of all of those things because I don't live in the United States, and that's just the reality of it. I'm not a United States hater, so miss me with that. I traveled all over the United States a whole bunch of times. I've driven cross country so many times. I've lived in California. I've lived in New York. I lived in Boston. I lived, you know what I'm saying? I've lived all over. And the United States is cool, but I'm over it. I want to see some new stuff. And Costa Rica is a great home base for me because then it affords me the opportunity to travel to other places and live a more affordable life and not be in the matrix, And I mean, I'm still in it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not in it. And so you don't realize how that your body is in fight or flight mode all the time living in the United States. You honestly don't realize it until you come someplace like this and you're like, oh, fuck. It is so quiet. And like I said, a lot of self-reflection, but what it is a lot of noise. There's not even a lot of advertisements, there's not even and unfortunately, who has billboards in this country? White people who come here and sell real estate. Y'all need to cut that shit out. Nobody needs to see your fucking gringo face on a huge billboard messing up the scenery. They're all illegal anyway. I'll end my rant there, but there's not even a lot of signage here, and so it's just really quiet. And then in the United States, it's like everything, even on Waze, they're popping up, "Hey, Starbucks is coming up." Like, it's a pressure cooker, and I'm reminded of that when I'm reading the, Morning Brew or the Associated Press or the little Morning Digest, and I'm just skimming through the headlines. Every once in a while, I make a mistake of like clicking on one of the links, and I can literally feel my blood pressure go up. I can literally feel myself like physically reacting to what I'm reading. And it just reminds me of how I was there all the time. I just lived there. And now I live here and it just spikes up. It spikes because of stress, because of health, because of but I'm baseline. You know what I'm saying? And then some of that news comes in or somebody new moves into town and they're still all keyed up about vaccines or whatever. And they're bringing all this energy and it's like, whoa, man. I'm like the ultimate hit. I'm like, whoa, man, watch your energy, bro. But for real, like, none of us moved here for that, and I appreciate that. And so the community that I have found and built and been gifted here by moving into this neighborhood in particular is such an incredible gift. And I think Thanksgiving really gave me an opportunity to really reflect on that and appreciate where I'm at. But yeah, man, living in Costa Rica, if you have any inkling of doing it, like come on with it then, man. Come for a month, get an Airbnb, spend the money, sublet your own place, whatever. and come live here for you can't decide if you want to live in Costa Rica coming for a week. First of all, it takes forever to get anywhere here. So you're like, oh, it's only 40 miles. Yeah, that 40 miles going to take you 2 hours. So don't get it twisted. Everything takes longer. So if you actually want to see Costa Rica, you need like 3 weeks, maybe even longer to not just be like, go, 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 go. But there's only a few central areas, the Central Valley, San Jose, I don't know, or like the beach regions or like the southern, people live in the Osa Peninsula and down there, but it's like way more remote. So there's not all that many places. But I just my point is I encourage you to do that. If that's what you want to do, you should do that. And because life moves fast, and my biggest the thing that was just echoing through my head is that, you know, life moves fast, and I wanna make the next 20 the best 20 because it might be the only 20 I got, and quite frankly, those 20 aren't even guaranteed. If I keep having these issues, I might fall out any day, you know what I'm saying? So just know I died happy. If this podcast comes to an abrupt end, you know why. But that was really fucking morbid. But the point is, anything is possible. But if I'm going to be on this planet, I want to spend the rest of my time looking at beautiful things. And that's the commitment I made to myself. And that's why I live where I live with this beautiful scenery behind me and all around me. And it's why I make the sacrifices to be here and to be a little more isolated, but also feel more connected than I've ever felt. I mean, it's not like I'm old man winter up on this mountain. I got good people in this neighborhood. And but life happens fast, man, and if you wonder what it's gonna be like, take a look at your parents. Can they, it's like you finally get to that retirement age and your knees suck and you can't do all the things you wanna do, and I don't wanna blink my eyes and wake up again and to think to myself, "Man, I missed it again. I missed my last sprint." And, yeah, there's people that live to be 80 and 90, even 100, especially around here. It's a blue zone. They're literally famous for people living a long time, but I think I came in at a deficit, so I don't have high expectations, but life is fast, man, and, one of my friends likes to quote me because one time he said, "Life is short," and I said, "No, man, life is long," and he just laughed at me, but I said, "No, really, when you're not happy, life is long. Life is hard, like, days are long. When you're not happy, when you're depressed, when you're not moving, when you're stagnant and you're sitting in your own shit, life is long and hard and arduous." But when you're feeling good and you're doing the things you're supposed to, the days go by and you're feeling better and you're accountable to yourself. That's when life is good. And that's when life is short. You know, that's when life is short. So, you know, um, embrace it and don't be afraid because, people say to me all the time, "Molly, you're so brave." I'm not brave moving to Costa Rica. I just did it. Okay. Bravery is running into a building, sacrificing my life for the betterment of others. I sacrifice my discomfort for the betterment of myself. I am not brave. Bold, dumb, maybe, but brave, no. Um, and I'd do it again. I'd do it again in a hot second. Even if I had to get broken into again, I'd do it again because you know what? It's worth it. And I'm so grateful for this time and I'm excited for what's next. So, if part of the reason why you're listening to this podcast is because you're curious about me and the fact that I live in Costa Rica, let me know. I'll tell you more Costa Rica stuff. It's pretty cool. I think the reason why I haven't been doing that is because I got really spooked about the break in and I became very uncomfortable with talking about where I live or showing where I live or just even, I don't even know. PTSD is a Mickey Flicky, y'all. So I'm doing my best, but it's a little bit more about me, a little bit more personal. And, I think there's a lot of women listening to this podcast who own businesses. And I really like that. And I really want to help. And so if I can do that, uh, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to. If I'm an inspiration to you in any way, shape, or form, then that's awesome, man. I feel like a douchebag saying that, but whatever. If me moving to Costa Rica makes you feel like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do the thing that I've been wanting to do too, then that's awesome. And I think you should do it, and I think you should tell me about it because, man, that's what life is all about. So, this episode is already a little bit too long, but I figured, this is who I am, and this is what's happening, and this is what's happened to me. So, sometimes I'm gonna check out a little bit, and that's okay too. But here I am. Thanks for taking time to listen to me and appreciating me speaking my truth. And I hope it I hope it makes you want to take the next step in your life. And hey, if you end up in Costa Rica, you better hit me up for sure. We gotta hang out and have an imperial. So on that note, have a good one. Be good to each other, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you for tuning in to the Next 100, sponsored by Heartcast Media. We are a digital media creative agency focusing on branding, marketing, strategy, and amplification. From personal branding to podcasting, we've got you covered. And to continue this conversation, join me on Instagram. My personal account is Molly D. Ruland, and of course, you can also find us at Heartcast Media. That's where the really good stuff is going down. So join me there. Let's continue the conversation. And until next week, have a good one.
Produced by Heartcast Media.